Hey, my name is Athena, and in this video I'm briefly going to talk about some things regarding my move. I apologize for wearing the same shirt as I did during my August wrap-up video, but it is the same day, and at the end of my wrap-up video I kind of started to talk about my move, and I thought, well, I might as well make that a separate video because that makes more sense, and then try and upload it a little bit separate from the rest so that people don't get too many videos in the same small amount of time, if that makes sense. So we moved from my parents' house to our new house. Well, new to us. So my boyfriend and I were living in the bakery on my parents' property, which is like a little house next to their, what we call the main house, the farm. And so we bought this house in February, in the beginning of February, so just before the pandemic reached the Netherlands, so to speak. We got the house in December 2019, just before Christmas, and this was quite the journey. Now, I have lived at the old house since I was 14. Let me just start at the beginning. So I was born in a different area of the Netherlands, and when I was a year and a half we moved to the same province that I live in now, but to a different town. And we lived in that house in that town from when I was 1.5 to when I was about 7. And then we moved because my parents were getting a third child, so there was me and my sister, and then there was my brother, and so an extra bedroom was needed for him, and so we moved to a different house in the same town, and I was 7 at the time, so I don't recall like a whole lot from it, but in that house we lived until I was 14, and I loved that house. It was a new built house. I don't know if my parents like designed it themselves or whether they had help from somebody, but like that was a newly built house, and I saw it being built when we went there every once in a while. Anyway, so I lived at that house until I was about 14, and then when I was 14 we moved from that town to the town that I live in now, to that house that most of you are very familiar with, the property with the big garden, the chicken, dog, and the farm, and then the bakery. So as a teenager I had a room in the, what we call the main house, the farm, and then when my boyfriend, whenever he came over, we would sleep in the bakery in a double bed. It was actually sort of like a bed couch kind of thing at first, but at some point we got like a more proper bed. Anyway, and he moved in, I'm not sure, like 2013, 2014. Well, he moved in earlier than before we got his stuff, so my dad and I rented a van and he drove to the UK because my boyfriend is from the UK, he's British. So we had a long distance relationship for quite some time before he eventually moved in with me, and so moved countries. Anyway, so we rented a van, we picked up him and his boxes in the UK and then drove back to the Netherlands. Anyway, so then the two of us lived in the bakery for some time, and the move when I was 14, to go from that village that I felt I'd grown up in for most of my life, we moved to this farm in a different town. That was a really difficult time for me. For about a year I refused to unpack my boxes because I didn't want to move. The farm was quite old in comparison to our new house, and so that came with some downsides. There was a big garden to play in, but at that time so I was a teenager, 14, and then becoming 15, and I had a lot of schoolwork, so I wasn't really into playing with like my little brother and sister outside anymore, if that makes sense. At the same time, I started a new like year in school, and in that year things became a lot more difficult. There was a lot more homework, and the students were expected to plan a lot more themselves, which I did not know how to do. And I was just overwhelmed with so the changes into all the move, the more difficult schoolwork, and I was a good student. I really liked to do it all well, and I really did my best. And anyway, I became depressed and extremely tired, and this was also when I eventually got my autism diagnosis a couple of years later, 2 years later roughly. And at school I started to see a counsellor. My parents had suspected autism for some time, but we didn't have an official diagnosis. I got that when I was 17, so a couple of years later. I also received antidepressant medication then. So I was depressed for a couple of years before we got to that point. My counsellor taught me to plan, which really helped. And she also taught me to, let's say, lower my perfectionism a little bit, because I really wanted, like, I did my absolute best to get good grades. And so those were some difficult years for me. It took me a while to get used to the house. I loved our animals. We didn't have them straight away when we moved in, but we got them a while later. We had 3 goats, a dog and chicken, and guinea pigs. The guinea pigs were there already, actually. We had a couple of guinea pigs in the old house. So the old house, anyway. So they came with us. We got rabbits at some point. Anyway, another thing that bothered me about the house was that there is no cable in the street for TV. There still isn't. There wasn't back then. And back then, one of the things I was really interested in were specific TV shows. This was the 1990s and early 2000s, and there were specific TV shows I was just really interested in, really passionate about. I always watched them when I could. I taped them on VHS tapes, and I would sometimes rewatch them from my tapes. And anyway, so in the new house, because we had no cable for TV, we then had to get a satellite and a box with that, and a thing on the roof. Anyway, so that means you cannot record something different than the channel you're watching. And you get that, so it was my parents and me and my siblings, so we were with the 5 of us, and of course not everyone wanted to watch the same thing at a time. And in the old house, my parents could watch something, I could record the show I wanted to see on VHS, and I could just watch it later. But that could not, we couldn't do that anymore in the new house, so that was difficult for me. Because you understand, I wasn't always able to record and or watch my shows when I wanted to. We even had, at some point, we had this old satellite box upstairs, which meant, yeah, so you could only watch one channel no matter how many TVs you had in the house, right? You had to watch the same channel on all TVs. That was, I don't know if that was clear, but I don't know how it works in other countries. Anyway, so at some point we had like this old TV upstairs with this separate box. And you could watch German TV channels on there, who, at the time at least, unfortunately, dub a lot of things that are not in German. So I even watched and recorded some shows off of that, which were originally English but then dubbed in German. And likewise, I even did that with Italian TV shows as well. So the TV shows weren't Italian, but they were dubbed Italian, if you get what I mean. Even though I did not speak any Italian, and I spoke only a bit of German at that time. I learned more German in school, but anyway. I'm rambling. We're losing a bit of track. So it took me a while to get used to that house, to really start loving it. And it was tough in high school with all the work and everything, and the antidepressants really helped me. I started to see, like, I don't know if therapist is a good word. I can't quite remember everything about all the people that I saw, but anyway, we did try several therapies and things, and anyway, so where was I going with this? The move. So, after I graduated high school, I then went to university. This was before I was together with my boyfriend. So I went to university, but I travelled. I did not want to move. I didn't want to live on a room by myself, I mean, because that's what most of the students did. So in Utrecht at the time, there were a small number of apartments on campus. Yes, so I went to Utrecht University. Sorry, that wasn't clear. There were a small number of apartments on campus, but most people actually had like a room or an apartment, not on campus, but like somewhere else in the area. I did not want that. I traveled instead, which I live somewhere in the south, let's put it that way, and that was quite a bit to travel. So I traveled by train and bus and bicycle. So bicycle, train, bus. There and back again every day that I had to be there. My boyfriend and I got together a few years after I started university, let's put it that way. And before that I broke up with my ex, who I got together with him in high school, and I broke up I think in my second year of university. Anyway, I studied for 9 years. I eventually got my bachelor and my master diploma. Particularly the master took quite some time in comparison to how much time you like have for it if you do everything. Like, anyway, so you're meant to do the bachelor in 3 years at the so I studied chemistry, and it took me, I believe, 4 years. And I was getting quite worn out by this point. I started to do things. So my third year was kind of split up into 2 years, if that makes sense, because I just couldn't do stuff as much full time anymore. Then I started my masters, which I kind of took half time as well. So masters is supposed to take 2 years in chemistry. It took me 5, although admittedly one of those years was not spent studying. So I did 2 years, again things in half time, part time, and after those 2 years I was exhausted. So I had I was just, we called autistic burnout, right? So that was what happened after I moved to the farm when I was 14, and then I was just done. So I was doing my university courses because, so the year, the master's is partially courses and then also your master thesis. And then as a third part, you could do a internship or you could do more courses, and I chose for the courses. So anyway, I was doing all these courses and I was just done. So I could not study for my last 3 exams. So what I decided was that, well, in talking with my family as well, was that I was not gonna try and study. I was just gonna go and make the exams and just see how I do. And I agreed with myself, okay, there's 3 exams. If I fail all 3 of them, that's it. I quit. You know, shame about what I've done so far, but at least I got my bachelor diploma. And if I pass 1 or 2, then I have to think about it. I did not think I would pass all 3. So that was not even really something I considered. So I went there. I had not studied at all. Actually, the last few courses that I took were not actually at Utrecht University, but they were at a university closer to home, which gave me less travel time, and I hope that that would also help me in my tiredness, because it was quite tiring to travel so much each day. Anyway, so I went to those exams. Anyone who knew me in high school, well, who remembers me well, let's say, would not be surprised that I passed all 3 exams. And I should point out, once I started at university, my grades were a lot lower than they had been in high school. So I was like, well, I passed all 3 exams, now I have no choice, I should continue. So I took a year off university to recover. I went to my doctor, my GP. I was put on a waiting list for this, like the organization that you go to in the Netherlands for stuff like this, I guess, for like mental health problems, if that makes sense. So I was put on the waiting list. So I had to wait a while before they had like a place for me, like to have appointments with me and stuff. So eventually I got there, and I was assigned like a therapist and psychiatrist and stuff, and I started medication. So this year that I took off, I don't remember much of it, to be honest. It's weird, but I was just so tired and like overwhelmed and overloaded with all the input, and I just don't remember much of it. So I remember going to the organization when when it was my turn, but before that I don't know what I did all day each day. I expect I was spending a lot of time in bed, but it's kind of just a blank in my memory, if that makes sense. Like, did I read any books? I don't know. I can't remember much, to be honest, of that time in my life. But anyway, so after the year was up, I started my master thesis. I was on medication, so things were going a bit better. And it took me 2 years for my master thesis. Normally it takes 1 year for studying chemistry. I actually studied like not just chemistry, but anyway, that's not needlessly overcomplicate things, and I don't want to give too much personal info away either. So it took me 2 years. University allowed me to work from home a few days a week, and then they wanted me at the university 1 day a week. I really struggled. There was the hope that I would gradually get better. So I was starting off doing it half-time. So I worked 4 days at home half-time, and then on 1 day in the week I had to go to university for half the day. But unfortunately I felt like I was only losing energy again, to be honest. And I really struggled to finish it. My professor asked after 2 years that she would have preferred if I stayed there longer, and then I would get a better grade, but I just couldn't. I was just overloaded again. It was too much. I was exhausted. I had literally been counting down the days, and I just couldn't, you know. So I graduated. That's a whole other story, because actually on my graduation I obviously invited some important people to me, family members, and then when we got there it turned out that that was not my graduation time at all, because the university gave us the wrong time. And anyway, I'm not good with unexpected situations, you know, autism and all that. So that was a bit of a story. But anyway, about a year later, I was still with this organization that I mentioned. My psychiatrist there suggested if I might have ADD. And I had not heard of ADHD existing without the hyperactivity part, and I have known for a long time. I thought, I'm not hyperactive. I'm very low energy most of the time. I really don't have that hyperactivity. So I was tested for ADD, and diagnosed with ADD. And that was also a bit of a journey, because I had to come to terms with that, and accept that and learn about it, etc. I was also started on medication. Yeah, and the whole reason the ADD thing was because I was having really trouble concentrating. And I've had that for a long time, but I always thought that was because of my autism. Whenever I hear a sound, I lose my concentration and I must look where it's coming from, sort of thing. But so it turned out that was also ADD, and you know, my own thoughts also distract me. And anyway, so then I was started on ADD medication, and I tried out a bunch of them, and so that was a whole journey. And meanwhile, I was also resting from university because, like I said, I was overloaded. My boyfriend moved in the bakery with me at some point as well. That was, I think, just before my ADD diagnosis. Anyway, sorry that this video is getting quite long. So we lived in my boyfriend and I lived in the bakery for several years. And it was always my parents' aim that he could live there, but then the two of us had to move out at some point. And, you know, live on ourselves. And so we've been looking for a while, and there was actually also a couple of like new build projects that we kept our eye on. We knew we wanted to live in the same town as my parents, the same town that I'm used to, and I knew that I needed a house that was relatively new, so nothing really old, because old houses are less well insulated, which means you hear everything, which is not good for me, because I am very sensitive to sounds and all that. And so if I'm gonna like buy a house or rent a house, because we thought about that for a while as well, it needs to be something that I can live in. Now the farm and the bakery were not, especially the bakery, not well insulated, but it is situated not like in a residential area with lots of people, but on like a street between other farms and fields, so wasn't as noisy with other people, let's say. And that's something that I'm noticing now, as we do live in a residential area with a well insulated house, but then, for example, if you're outside, that you can hear a lot more, and that's also a change. In that sense, I've been relatively sheltered in the old location that we didn't have as much of that. Although we did have a neighbor that was often mowing his lawn on like a lawn car mower, almost like a little vehicle thing that made noise. And we had the farmer on the other side, which sometimes he wanted to do stuff to the land at ridiculous early or late hours in the day, which woke me up. So I've been sleeping with earplugs actually for the last few years there. And then there's the bird song. Anyway, to bring it back to the beginning, we moved in August 2020 in this house. So we got that, we bought, signed a contract in the beginning of February. And so all those months, we've been busy doing the house up. And I say we, but I really mean like my parents, my boyfriend and I. My parents gave us lots of help. My boyfriend has ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, so he can't do lots of things either without getting tired. So, you know, we had to pace ourselves. For me, such a big change, I needed to gradually get used to things. So now we have moved since just over a week and a half, and it feels like it's been a lot longer already, to be honest. And I'm struggling with the changes, just, you know, being in different location. Well, everything looks different, things work differently. There's a lot more things I have to deal with as now being a house owner instead of the kid of somebody. Stuff to take care of, unexpected things. We had a leak, for example. The dishwasher is not working how it should, and we didn't find out it was also a lot older than we thought it was. Anyway, living in a residential area means there's also lots more people ringing the door trying to sell you stuff, which is also something that didn't happen as much at the old house. And whenever it did happen, I could just say, I'm the kid, it's not my decision, come back, you know, I can't say anything, you know. So that was a much more convenient excuse than that now I have to listen to their talk to finally figure out what they want and to say, no, I don't want it. So, but I'm learning. There's a lot more bills to pay, unexpected bills in some cases as well, because I've never lived on my own before. Because when we lived in the bakery, we were on the same address, so we didn't have to like separately pay bills or something, if that makes sense. Like food and, you know, groceries, yes, but not like anything that goes on a property basis. Things like water, electricity, gas, internet. Although gas is a good point, there is no gas at the old house. There are no gas pipes. We cooked on a gas bowl, which is quite unusual in the Netherlands, let me tell you. Most houses have gas pipes, and some people have electric cookers. Most people have cable here in the Netherlands. Old house did not. Anyway, in the new house we do have gas pipes. We use gas for the heating. We have an electric cooker, which is also something I had to get used to. The old house had no such thing as gas heating. We had, well, first there was just the oil thing. My dad had a wood, like a big wood heater built, and then a few years ago we had a heat pump installed and solar panels, which is obviously much better for the environment. But we could only get those solar panels once they put a cycle path through the back of the garden, basically. Anyway, I didn't want to make it too rambly here. So there's lots of stuff to get used to. I am enjoying the much faster internet here, because the old house, well, it's not too bad at the moment, but it took a long time to get there, and this is much faster here. Yeah, the old house has always had a lot less quick internet than many other houses in, let's say, residential areas. So that was something that I struggled with. Not only for me personally, because I find it really much more easy to connect with people on the internet, but also, for example, for university, when, for example, a teacher would email us, let's say, a PowerPoint presentation or something, or a PDF of an article that we had to read through for class, and with our internet at the time, which was dial-up, whereas most other people in the Netherlands have cable or DSL, ADSL, took a long time, and then if it gets disconnected for some reason, you have to start all over again. So actually the reason that we got faster internet at that point in the old house was because I was talking to somebody at university. I I think he was like the lab leader or something, like the. But anyway, so I talked to him and I said, I find it really difficult when you and other teachers send us these like attachments that are big files. They were at the time, because my internet is all we have is ISD and dial-up, and it takes like half an hour for me to download it, and then if somebody phones while you're busy downloading it, that's it, you can start all over again. And then he suggested to try this company that might deliver internet in like more unusual places, and so that's how we got to our first slightly faster internet. But anyway, I'm rambling now. We have nice internet here now, which I'm very happy with. I mean, I'm paying for it, obviously, but that is nice. And it should be interesting to see once I upload my first video, that August wrap-up that I filmed, and this one, to see how that's gonna go. So yeah, I'm getting to the end of this video, but I'm struggling with the changes, particularly mental health wise. I am really missing my pets that I can't be with right now, the chicken and the dog. I'm not missing the leaky roof and the mice and bugs and things like that. But yeah, it's just a lot of changes, and well, that's difficult. So yeah, my mental health has been struggling. So if you have any tips at all, I don't know, anything that helps you, feel free to share it in the comments, or if you don't want it to be public, DM me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm not around much on Instagram and Twitter, but you can send me a message at least, and then I'll see it at some point. So because I am struggling. It maybe it doesn't look like that to you, but at the same time, the old house seems quite far away as well, so I kind of feel in limbo. Like, does that make sense? Like a little bit stuck nowhere. We've been working on unpacking, and I still need to get used to everything, and I know it will take time. But, or if you want to tell me something about a move of yours or something, feel free to, well, share what you like in the comments, as long as it's nice. You know, I don't insult anyone. But yeah, it's just hard. I know moving is hard for most people. It's one of the most difficult things in life, most stressful things. And then with my autism and also ADD, that, yeah, changes are particularly hard. And I have those memories from when I moved before. Yeah. Things will hopefully, you know, get easier with time as I get more used to the house. But I guess it will take time and energy. I've not been sleeping greatly most nights. Some nights I have, and actually our bed here is a lot nicer than the old bed we had in the bakery, because that was a quite like the cheapest bed you could buy, and the mattress, and it was just not, it was not that comfortable. This bed's a lot more comfortable that we have now, that we bought and, you know, paid for and all that, but I just been really stressed and anxious and nervous, and sometimes I'm excited, but other times I'm just scared, and yeah. But I know that it will hopefully get better, and you know, just gotta be patient and get used to things, and you know, take it one day at a time, and yeah. Anyway, I shall wrap this up now because I've been talking for a long time. And it's lunchtime here now, and I'm feeling hungry. So, oh yeah, I do plan on at least showing my bookshelves and some pictures and stuff like that. I've shown some pictures before in a previous video, but yeah, that will be coming. This was more sort of a chatty, rambly video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!